Recording on. And are we going?
Yes.
Got a red light? Okay, good. All right, thanks everybody. We're here at the final PAC Forum here in Eugene, Oregon. We're going to get started today. And as we usually do, I'm going to give you all just 3 minutes to talk about anything you'd like. You don't necessarily have to introduce yourself again. But be thinking about maybe something that you'd like to talk about before I dive into the first question from the PAC. And I'd like to see who would like to start with just some opening comments. Anybody want to volunteer? David.
Thanks, Brian. It's great to be back in Eugene. I spent a good number of years here in school and living here, so it was great. I just want to let everybody know that we've invited tribal members to go to our kind of a gathering, a potluck gathering, today at the U of O Longhouse, the Many Nations Longhouse, at 3 o'clock. So we'll be there from 3 to probably about 5:30 or 6. And so we left a little time so people could, take care of whatever they need to before they go over there after the event. So everybody's invited. This week I was looking at some of the environmental issues that I'm involved with. I'm involved in a lot of history and environmental issues. The tribe has a pretty significant history of living in all these off our lands in Western Oregon, some 10,000 years of history. And so when the current administration and the federal administration decided to look at some of the national monuments that were established under the Antiquities Act from 1906, I really perked up because we have one in Southern Oregon, the Cascade-Siskiyou National Forest or National Monument. And so it looks like, Zinke actually toured that monument this last weekend, and so it looks like it's a possibility that they could either reduce it or eliminate it because it's actually a fairly recent national monument, created in 2000, and it has a pretty amazing ecosystem down there. That's why it's been preserved. It's got a lot of natural resources and cultural resources there from the tribes. And I'd like to see, personally, that the tribes are out more in front of that, stating publicly that this cannot happen, that they need to preserve these national and natural features in perpetuity. And that's why the national monument's there in the first place, why Clinton established it, that's why Obama expanded on it. So I have a little flyer here, and I've been putting stuff on my Facebook site, so if you guys want to, you can go up at any time and grab these flyers and read more if you want. But that's my opening today. I also have the previous flyer from Portland where I talked about some of the economic ideas I have for the tribe for more expansion of our economic viability. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Who'd like to go next? Go ahead, Tom.
Good morning, and I just want to say thank you to everybody that came. Again, thank you to the candidates for all being here. That's great. Good luck to everybody. My name's Tanya Gleason, and just want to say that I have been honored to work for the tribe and for the tribal membership for the last 3 years. And I am asking people to support me this year, vote for me, but no matter who you vote for, if I'm elected, I will work for the entire membership, just as I've done for the last 3 years, and I will continue to do that. I'm just happy that people are engaged and participating in the process. I've actually this year received probably about 6 phone calls from tribal members that live in different states, and that's the first time that's happened. It's really exciting to learn about these people and what some of their struggles are, what some of their wishes are for the tribe. And so I just encourage anybody to call me anytime. I'm always available. My phone number is on Facebook. It's on the tribal webpage, but 785-819-4746. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Go ahead, Lisa.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Lino. I am very honored to be here today. There are some people that I do not know, so I will introduce myself and just tell you a little bit about my experience working for the tribe. I've been working for the tribe for 21 years. I've worked in the Education and Social Services Department. I began my career here at a time when we were building programs, so I had the opportunity to build our tribal preschool program, our youth education, and now I currently manage our youth prevention program. So it's been a very amazing experience to work with our membership. I work directly with youth primarily, but also with families. And it's been nice, probably in the last 10 years. I do a lot more work with elders now. A lot of our elders and other family members are helping to raise our children. So that's been something that's been new for me, and I've really learned a lot from our elders during this time. So I'm very appreciative for everything that I've been had the opportunity to do, and all the many services that we provide to our membership that I too as a tribal member have been able to access. So thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Mark, you want to go ahead?
Okay. Yeah, my name is Mark Mercier, and between 1984 and 1999, I served on the tribal council. And so my primary interests are, looking into the enrollment issue if anybody comes forth with any concerns. I've heard an awful lot of discussion about it, and so I'm sure that it's going to surface once again. Another thing I'm interested in is very interested in the health care now. The tribe has its health care system, and a lot of that is financed through the federal government. And so right now, the almighty Mr. T back in Washington is beating the senators over the head. They repeal the Obamacare and give me something that I want. But if he gets what he wants, it's going to severely impact this tribe's ability to provide the health services they currently are. So that's one thing I want to see the tribe is start taking a look at some scenarios, the best case to the worst, and develop some kind of a contingency plan. Another one is like the economic development or employment opportunities for the tribe. And so previously when I was on the council, we worked closely with the entities from both the private and the public sector, looking for ways to see if we could, do maybe something to do with recreation or light industry, or I really don't know what would work, but I'm sure there's got to be something out there that we could do. But I think the first thing that's going to be essential is that if we can get the tribal council to work as a team and set some goals and objectives, set up some kind of a comprehensive development plan, focusing on both housing and economic opportunities. And I think that if we can get that done and set some long-term and short-term goals, that I think we could at least get going in some kind of a good direction. Thank you.
Angela.
Good morning. My name is Angela Shalabi. I'd like to thank all of you for coming. Just to give you a little bit of history about myself, I've worked at Spirit Mount Christina for 14 years. I volunteered for the tribal court for 10 years now, advocating for our tribal member children. The reason I am running for council is because I find that our tribe has come into quite a few issues lately. I'd like to focus on hiring practices. I want to focus on disenrollment, which I have to say, I'm surprised that we haven't been asking seriously difficult questions, which is really what I'm hoping that we will be faced with today. I want the membership to understand that right now is the time to ask us these difficult questions before you base your opinion on who should be representing you as a council member. I would like to hear questions regarding disenrollment, questions regarding enrollment. A lot of us up here are talking about economic development, which is obviously a very important issue as well, but I'm hoping that today you guys reach out and really ask us the difficult questions. Thank you.
Great.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Chris Mercier, and I've actually spent about, behind Grand Ronde and Salem, Eugene is where I've spent a significant portion of my life because I am an alumni of the University of Oregon. I got my degree in 1998 in journalism, and interestingly, a lot of what I learned living here in Eugene and going to college here, I've taken to the council. As many of you know, I've always been an advocate for communication, free flow of information, freedom of the press, so we now have this new independent press ordinance. And it is kind of interesting, you know, Mark alluded to like the presidential administration, and historically, I don't think we've ever seen people this combative with just the journalism in general in this country than what we're facing with the present president. And I hope I hope too that we don't have to deal with that in Grand Ronde. I hope that we have a government that will always be open to its citizens, that doesn't back away from tough questions. I think we're making a lot of strides in that area. Well, not many tribes live stream their council meetings and their general council meetings. We do that. We're opening up more documents online. We're declassifying documents. So I do feel like the tribe is taking more steps to be open with its members. I'm not satisfied. I think there's a lot more tools at our disposal that we could use, but I do like the direction we're heading in, and I'd hate to see us take a step backwards. I will say also that just because I'm taking night classes and studying law right now, I've developed more of an interest in the rights of tribal members, and I think our Constitution gives us the tools, but we don't actually get the opportunity to exercise a lot of our rights. Right now, really all you do is just vote in council elections. So I think the fact that we're conducting advisory group votes is a good step in the first step in the direction. I do think we need to refine that process, but I'd like to see more civic engagement from our tribal members, more interaction. I think our voter turnout is low, and I think that's something that needs to improve. But I think as the government opens up more and tribal members become more serious, that'll naturally come. But we must first make the effort to become more open as a government, and we're taking those steps, but I still think there's more that could be done.
That's great, Michael.
Yeah, I'm glad to see the people that did make it. But I saw you last year, and it's good to see you again this year. So my name is Michael Langley, and I'm going to try and keep this brief because I think we've had 3 introductions now. But my education is in accounting, and I want to talk about my experience because although my education is in accounting, everybody always says, "Oh, bean counter," you know, and it's not a very glamorous position. Although the movie The Accountant, I hope, you know, gets that excitement level back up. I was so proud that we finally had a movie that was exciting for us. But my work experience, I think, is what really makes that accounting education work. Even going back to as far as picking berries at 12 years old, you know, and spending the summer in the fields, bucking hay bales, picking beans, doing all these things, I think it really shapes a person. And then even that led into, when I was in high school, I actually managed a skating rink because they just felt I could handle it. And so I was the one that always had the music because I had a budget to buy music and I had to always carry it with me, and so it kind of made me a little bit popular because I always had the latest music. But you know, those experiences lead into a lot of things. So when I got into college, I worked for an office furniture company, and that also, you know, gave me some hands-on experience. Learned a lot about downtown Portland, loved it, and because I was going to school at Portland State. And then that led into other opportunities in project management, operations manager. I got into sales. So I have a really varied work background to go with my accounting education. I am still doing some accounting work for a nonprofit, and that's been really rewarding. I've seen it go from having to borrow money to meet payroll to having, you know, $600,000 in the bank and some reserves. And so I've been doing that for 10 years, and I'm going to take some credit for that because they really did start to look to me as a trusted advisor for a lot of things. So I'm hired by the board for that nonprofit, so the directors that come in, they can't interfere with what I want to do with the accounting. And so the board takes a lot of, they really appreciate that. So there's been 3 directors and just me through that whole time. So the board really likes that experience with me. And then all of this led to me being an internal auditor at the casino, which I've been for the last 8 years. And I think that was very eye-opening. What a fascinating industry, I'll tell you that. And I've been able to reach out to a lot of other tribal casino people that are doing the same position that I'm doing. Every year there's a convention of not just tribal casino auditors, but nationwide auditors. And making those contacts on an annual basis, and then being able to call up somebody from New York and say, how do you guys do this? What do you have in your audit plan? Is really valuable. And I think that networking and my education and experience really has helped me to the point where I am now. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. All right, so I'm going to go with the first question from the PAC, and then we'll turn it over to the IS for those of you, so be thinking of your questions that are here. And this one has been a question we've been struggling with for a long time. The PAC's been around for almost 8 years. And one of the challenges that the PAC, and I think general council members more broadly have, is it's very difficult to reach out and contact other tribal members and to facilitate gatherings and getting together. I think in GR it's very easy, right? There's a lot of things that go on in the community there that bring people together and you're able to interact. But outside of GR it's very, very, very difficult. One of the barriers to that is that the tribe historically has not really made it easy on us to learn about what tribal members live in our communities and facilitate a way for us to actually just reach out to them and say, hey, come over and let's go hang out, let's go do something. Or this event is going on today in Eugene. We had, if you look at social media, not started by the tribe obviously, our social media interaction is significant. That had nothing to do with the tribe, right? That's tribal members themselves starting these forums and these Facebook pages to interact with one another. The only ways we can interact is either through smoke signals, which we have to pay for if we want to reach out to folks and say, hey, come over to an X event. Or through just kind of word of mouth, reaching out to folks that know folks that know folks. And what we think can be done to actually make it easier for members to get to know one another. And politics all aside here, it's just about building community outside of GR, is for the tribe to share or build at least, I don't even know if the tribe has the information, but build a set of information, so cell phone numbers, using text messages and phone apps to connect with one another. There's Foursquare, there's all these different apps that allow friends and families to connect. The tribe proactively could do something like that to allow for folks in other communities to gather. So the question we have is that if you're elected, would you be supportive of creating some kind of service for tribal members outside of GR? And I think even for GR it would help people to get a text message from the tribe or from education that, hey, we have an event coming tonight, just reminding you it's happening, or an application that sends out a reminder to let you know that. But outside of Grand Ronde, that would be really invaluable for us to just build community. Would you be supportive of the tribe proactively putting some money and effort into building some kind of tool for tribal members to interact? Because that's something that we think would improve the engagement of our tribal members and thus improve their civic participation, meaning that they'll vote more. Because it'll be more than just a per capita paycheck every quarter that they have with the tribe. They'll actually be engaged in other things for those folks outside the GR in particular. So be thinking about that. Would you be supportive of some kind of the tribe developing a tool? It could be a phone application, it could be a database online, it could be an email service, etc. To do that. As I said, the tribal member, we've done it ourselves through Facebook. The tribe could be proactive. So be supportive of one and maybe share some ideas as well that you have to do that. So Lisa.
I think that's a great idea. We actually, I mentioned earlier that I am the manager for our prevention program, and we are actually in the process of doing that for our program, as well as collaborating with youth education, housing, who else is on board? Culture. We're trying to get NRD involved in it as well. So what we've been doing is we've been kind of collaborating together and then trying to find what options are out there already that we might be able to access. So the text messaging you mentioned is something that our local school district does that is very, very helpful for parents and a great way to connect. So we actually have a sexual health program that we have within Willamina School District, so that we're able to kind of access that, and we've been able to track whether or not that helps with his success and communication with parents. So I think that is an amazing idea. I think there is already a lot of great apps, great avenues to do that. It really just takes a group of committed individuals to get together and talk about what that would look like. And I think you have to include your audience. So the people that you're going to be reaching out to need to be part of that process. If you develop something just with a bunch of programs together, you're missing the point, and the point is to engage the people. So in that process, so I think it's an amazing idea, and it works really well. In terms of what's going on now, I know that a lot of programs in Grand Ronde do have Facebook pages for their programs, and we do get a lot of outside information that is given to us and asked to be put on our page, and as long as it's positive and promoting healthy interactions, we do for youth prevention. I think there are other programs that do that as well, so there are some options that are already kind of out there that we could tap into now. So yeah, thank you.
So it sounds like you're very supportive. Let's go to Michael next. He has his hand up, and then we'll go to Tanya after.
Of course, I'm supportive of it. Anything we can do to raise communication level, made me think of Twitter, but I'm not sure we want to use it the same way that President Bush is using it.
Trump, by the way.
Or Trump, sorry. Sorry, Trump, that's right. I wish it was, yeah. It's surprisingly better. So, but one of the things I do hear a lot that people complain about is how they'll talk to one department and they'll give their change of information, and then they assume that that's reached somehow everywhere. And that's not the case. So somehow, if we did have some kind of master database that everything linked into an ERM system, would be great. If we could do that. The other thing would be some online participation for our general council meetings. If we could include that as far as quorum, that'd be great. I'd love to see that. And I also want to give a shout out, because I've just been really impressed with her work. I'm worried I got the last name wrong. Melody Baker, I think, is in the health department, and she's done a fantastic job going above and beyond in what she does online with social media, to the point where it's hard to get optometrists appointments scheduled, and she's out there saying, hey, we have openings, and people will be able to get in like that, and it's that type of outreach, I think, is what we need. People that don't take, we talked about this last time, that's an example of the exceptional. So there's the good and there's the exceptional. I just wanted to note that for her too.
Tanya.
So this is actually something that council's had quite a few conversations on. And I think Lisa's exactly right. I think some of our departments are doing that, and Health Clinic is doing a very good job of that. I think what we're missing is connecting all of that, and then looping in outside of Grand Ronde. And I think the listserv that we authorized is going to move us in that direction in leaps and bounds. So it's going to be a database where all of these programs, then all of that information will go there to all of the tribal members. And I don't think we've had any discussions about tribal members being able to submit anything to that listserv, but I don't see why we couldn't create policy and certainly allow that. And I do think that we're a government, obviously, and we're a little bit behind in the technology. And I'm not a technical person, but I've had discussions with our executive staff about text messaging. And I know there's apps and there's programs out there. that I feel like we could be using to communicate with the tribal members and also for marketing and that kind of thing. So I am very interested in looking at the text messaging aspect of it, but I think the listserv's going to go a long ways. I think we just found out the other day that one of the frustrations for our tribal members that don't live in Grand Ronde is meetings that tribal council have, work sessions that we have that are recorded on audio, and this tedious process that you have to go through to request it. And I know there was an effort at one time just to do those live, and that was not successful. But there might be a compromise in the near future as far as being able to post those on this listserv directly to tribal members. So there is some movement in all of that. And like I said at the Portland meeting, I also would be interested in some kind of a program, whether it be like a FaceTime or webcast or whatever it is, so that our tribal council meetings are not just viewed by our tribal members that aren't living and able to attend the Grand Ronde meetings, but also able to submit live questions and receive answers. So I think all of that's on its way.
It's good. It sounds like you're really supportive, and thanks for the
Yes,
update
I do support
on
it.
this survey. I wasn't aware that we were developing a database and a listserv. So I had David next, and then Angela, then we'll go to Chris, and then we'll end with Mark.
Thank you for that question. That was a great question because it made me recall, when I was a culture manager, we had to deal with this same issue. How do you get cultural information and history and documents out to folks? When I was there, we were getting hundreds of requests a year for reports, information about tribes, maps, all kinds of information that, we'd like to get out, but there was no place people could turn to except for calling us on the phone, and then we'd send it either through mail or email or whatever, or people come visit us. I think that what the tribe really needs is a system similar to what I believe Siletz has it, and the Cow Creek have it. They have a login server, administrative server you can log into, and you can activate that for really anybody. People can have that whole service on your computer. There's actually a whole Microsoft program already developed for that, and all you need to do is give people passwords and approval to enter that. And then the tribe on its side would have a database, would have archives, would have communication software, where you can actually, perhaps even giving people tribal emails, and you have an email server at the tribe, and then a database so people can access that. So you could have cultural archives, and you could have political archives, like the meeting agendas, transcripts, video, things like that you could then disseminate. And then using Chris's project to get us advisory votes, trying to figure out an efficient way of getting advisory votes into people. There could be an advisory part of that too, where you can get actually out the questions in that process and get the answers back. And using that same service, you would actually save a lot of money rather than just, snail mail, options. So there's a lot of things. I think if you had some sort of login service, you'd have more efficiency, you'd save time, save money for everybody, not just the tribe, but people who want to contact other tribal members, you'd save money and time. Things like education opportunities. You could have online education if you had a login service, just like they have at universities and colleges today. You can announce events, invitations. All that stuff is more possible if we have a service, and we have the capacity at the tribe to do so. They have massive servers at the tribe now. I was speaking to these people years ago, and they said we could do this. We just need a little training and perhaps an approval from council to do it. And other tribes do it, so I'm not sure why we wouldn't do that. So that's my ideas.
That's good. Angela.
Well, I absolutely support a database tool which would allow membership to reach out to one another. My concern, however, is not everybody is technically savvy. I know my parents are not. So I think as council, if I were elected, I would for sure support it, but I would also want to set up a program where we can get our not so technically savvy people in and kind of train them how to use that, because if they don't know how to use it, they're not going to use it. We also would want to make sure that we have membership approval to get their information out there and let others have their cell phone number or their email address. And tribal councils should champion the change. If we are wanting to help Eugene people have their different various events, I think that council members should definitely dedicate their time to attend these events as well. And I think Michael mentioned smoke signals, or actually you mentioned smoke signals. I know smoke signals goes to people's mail late. I know when I was living in Salem, I would be so excited to get my smoke signals and look at these various events and realize the events already occurred. So smoke signals can be delivered late, and sometimes the events have already passed. So building community involvement outside of Grand Ronde, I definitely support that.
Okay, Chris, and then Mark.
Well, my answer is not going to be too long because Tanya already beat me to the punch. Because we had a meeting with our finance staff, because finance is who oversees our IS department, and the software for the listserv has been purchased, so it's ready to go. We've got a meeting scheduled, I think, Wednesday to decide how we're going to implement that and what exactly we're going to send out. It's not going to be something that'll happen overnight because we need to acquire people's email addresses, and I think you would verify that the same way you verify people's physical email addresses. The problem is going to be getting people to respond, because I imagine we'll have to send out some sort of survey and get people to return those surveys with that information. And historically, whenever we've done surveys, whether it's the SEA or the housing survey, I don't think we've ever gotten even 50% of our voting age members ever respond to it. So while we have these tools, again, the civic engagement does still start with the tribal members. They have to be sure to fill out the forms. If they want to supply their phone numbers, if they want to subscribe to text messages, all of that as well requires a degree of consent, because otherwise, if you're like me, I get email newsletters from National Geographic, Men's Health, Outside Magazine. I don't read half of them anymore. So if you're going to have multiple tribal departments sending you email blasts, expect for your email box to get full pretty quickly. So I think it's an improvement. I think it's a step in the right direction. But again, we're going to need people to turn over their information to us. We're going to need them to return these surveys and consent to doing that. Other than that, I think it's a great tool, and I'm looking forward to developing it. I would also say, though, and I said this in Portland, I do think like the development of other media would help. So people, not just emails and print media, but also a possible online radio station, an online TV station. Again, I don't think it would be 24/7 what the tribe produces, but it would give other avenues for people to remain engaged with the tribe, and I do think that'll bump up civic engagement.
Thanks. Mark?
Well, yeah, I do like the idea, the concept, looking for ways to improve, how to get the information out there to the enrolled membership. But in all honesty, I have to tell everybody here that if you look up the word technological moron in the dictionary, you're going to see my picture. So it's you're going to have to be patient with me, because I really don't do a lot of social media. And, there are some concerns I have about getting into that. When you have people making, frivolous allegations about with council members' behavior or something like that, or what they do on their off-duty time. I wouldn't even attempt to respond to something like that. So, but overall, so far the discussion, I think everybody here would like to see something like that happen and be included.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. And thanks, everybody. I think those are good responses, and I'm glad to hear that this is going on. I hope you guys aren't going to send out a paper survey to people, right? The easiest way to get people's information is just to create a portal on the tribe's website and say, enter your email address. And then they get an automated email and I verify it, and they're done. We do that for your bank. We do that for our school. We do that for my job. I do that everywhere now. So let's not make it too complicated here, council, if you guys are doing this. Let's get with the times. And I agree with Mark that there is going to be this technology gap, right? And a lot of it has to do with generational issues. But that is closing, right? And the younger folks today, our future tribal members, they live and breathe this stuff. And, you know, I'm gonna be an elder in 15 years or whatever, or I guess 10 years now. You know, I'm already fully into that, so it's a good investment for our future to do this. So I appreciate that to hear you all are supportive of creating these avenues for folks outside of GR to build community. Because I think it would have helped today to be able to, through some kind of like Nextdoor app, if you're not familiar with Nextdoor, it's very popular in Portland. Everybody in my community in Maplewood in Southwest Portland is on this, all my neighbors. And so when there's an event, you just send, you don't have to have their phone number or their email or anything. They have the app. They are still a private citizen. We don't have any of that. But when somebody in our community sends out a blast, everybody gets it on their phone. That's the kind of tools you create. We don't have to hand out phone numbers or email addresses. They just need an app that they agree to participate in, and we all can communicate and create these events. It's pretty costless and efficient to do. All right, so I'll turn to the, Mike, you got a question?
What is your position on hemp, and do you support or oppose it as a business venture for the tribe?
Fantastic question. So, do you support or oppose cannabis, hemp, either growing or sales for the tribe? Chris, go ahead.
This is really easy. Yes, I support all of it. It's legal in the state now. Other tribes are getting into it, whether you're talking hemp, medical marijuana, medicinal marijuana. It's legal in the state, and the tribe is located in the state, so I don't see why you wouldn't take advantage of it. It is something that some people are going to have issues with, just like they had issues with gambling 20-something years ago. It will not be as, I don't think, in my opinion, it will be as lucrative as gambling if the tribe were to get into it, but it's not legal in every state, and so the tribes that reside in these states, I think, need to take advantage of it. They do need to do their research based upon a conference I went to on cannabis last month. But, you know, Warm Springs is already ahead of us. There are tribes in Washington, several that have opened up dispensaries. I'm not sure about hemp production, but there's an opportunity right now, and I don't think it's going to be an opportunity that's going to be around long, especially as the trend continues nationally of more states starting to look at legalization. So I think if it's something the tribe's serious about, the window of opportunity is right now.
Okay, so we have David had his hand up. Next. We got David.
Go first.
Then we'll go Michael, then Mark, then Angela.
He gave it back to me.
Oh, he passed him. Okay.
I wrestled away from David, so.
Take it away.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. I think it is. You know, I want to say it's an emerging, but it's actually a re-emerging market. It was very lucrative back in the Revolutionary era. All the presidents back then grew hemp. It was a cash product. And you know, I don't know a lot of it. I know there's a lot of product you can make from it, and it really is more of a green, sustainable thing than say the microgreen cups would have been. So to me, I would love to get into hemp. And you know, I started looking into it more because people are talking about it, and I actually thought there were more countries that were currently investing in it, and it seems like there's a lot of countries that are kind of behind and still the stigma attached to it, even though there's, you know, they don't have the THC in hemp. That's the the drug part of marijuana. Hemp doesn't have that. So I would say, yeah, I would love to get into it. I'm reading up on it. It seems like Canada's kind of taking advantage of our lack of getting into it. So they're exporting a lot of seeds right now. And so when I read into it, the recommendation is to start with seeds because that's the easiest product to move right now. Because there's not a lot of manufacturing, there's not a lot of processing. Definitely, I think our policy and procedures for economic development includes no startup companies. So we'd have to work around that part of the policy because it would definitely be more of a startup. But I'm all for it. Chris is right. I don't think there's anything that's going to be as lucrative as a casino business. But if we can get into it early, we should be doing that. And especially now, it's not. If we spend now time hiring, trying to find some experts that are currently doing it somewhere, even if it's another country, and we could find those people and bring them here and help us develop it, I'm all for it.
So I have David, then Mark, and then Angela.
Well, I'm all for investing in hemp, I've been watching the sort of national conversation, and I think tribes really need to be careful. The current administration appears to be somewhat iffy on whether or not federal lands can be used for growing hemp, and for all we know, I mean, there could be an executive order at some point that take away that right from tribes. And so we need to be careful. I mean, I know the tribe has land that's not under federal trust, and so we perhaps could use that land instead. And I don't know that we have experts of the tribe that know how to grow hemp. I mean, I'm not going to assume we do. But I know there's a lot, I've been watching this conversation, there's a lot of companies in Oregon and California and Washington and other places that grow hemp. We've been growing hemp for a number of years now, that are looking for space. And so we could literally we don't necessarily have to be the experts. All we have to do is finance that, give them the financing, give them the land. We take a good piece of the profit off that, and we're not the complete owner. You know, we're not doing it, because I don't know that we are capable of doing that right now. We'd have to. It's a learning curve. There's a lot of soil science involved. There's a lot of agricultural science involved in that, and so I would rather look at a really good planning effort where we look at other options rather than just being the sole owner of that. I know there's sovereignty issues involved, things like that, but still, there's ways of investing in that and making a pretty good profit on that and not being completely exposed.
Thanks, David. Mark?
Well, first of all, I guess I'm not going to say I oppose it, but I would recommend everybody approach this with a great deal of caution. Because one thing I know is that the U.S. Department of Transportation doesn't care if Oregon has it legalized or not. When they get a call, they give you 45 minutes for me to go, you know, to the McMinnville Hospital, you know, to do a urine test. So it just depends on what the feds are going to do, because they're going to have their say about regulation and everything else. So you know, I think it just warrants a great deal of research, you know, not only on a scientific but on a legal level too.
Thanks, Mark. Angela?
Well, I am absolutely not knowledgeable about hemp whatsoever. However, I would definitely like to research the opportunity. I've heard Chris and Michael talk about the different opportunities hemp could provide the tribe, and I'm definitely interested in learning more about it, so I would not oppose it.
Tanya?
Great question. I was waiting for that one. So I'm gonna answer it first as an individual, not as a council person, as one person. As one person, I support hemp. I support medical marijuana. I personally do not support recreational marijuana. Now, as a council person, if our membership decides that that's what they want to do, then I will respect that and I will support and advocate for what the tribal member wants. So I'm hoping that we move forward and get that information from the membership. So, and I don't have a problem doing that if that's what they want to do. Then I'll get behind and I'll support that. There's a couple of issues that we know of right now as far as investing in the marijuana industry, and that's significantly is banking and insurance. So I think it's very important that we be fully informed about all of the risk and all of the benefits and make sure that we're making smart decisions when we move forward. And some of our preliminary studies and information that we're getting back indicates right now in the state of Oregon that there's plenty of growers, that the growing market is really pretty saturated, and then it kind of bottlenecks in the testing. There's not enough testing facilities, there's not enough people doing that regulatory work. And so that might be an opportunity for us to do something like that. And you just want to be careful because also, like Mark mentioned, the federal government at this time is pretty unstable with where they sit with that and whether we're going to take some steps backwards or not. And I think until we get a few more states that have legalized it and really put that kind of nail in the coffin for the federal government to move backwards, we just need to be very careful, very informed, and make smart decisions.
Thanks, Tanya. Lisa.
That is a great question, and I've been waiting for it since last year when I was running, actually. As most of you know, I have worked in the community, I mentioned, for 21 years. My passion and my work has been working with young people, youth and families in the areas of education and later now in terms of prevention work. So I'm kind of the prevention person that's, kind of out in the community doing all the work to try to promote healthy lifestyles and making good decisions that lead to a long and healthy life. With that said, that is my current job. I realize and recognize that if elected to tribal council, that I need to be willing and able to sit down and have any discussion. And I need to be able to gather the information. I need to be able to ask questions. I need to be able to share the information and what I know about our community and what I've learned in my work, and then make a sound decision. I agree with Tanya that it is my philosophy, it's my thought, but I do think that, we have to get behind the decisions that our tribal members make, and I would have to support wherever that led us. I wish and I hope, since this has been a discussion, we've been out in the community for a long time. It's kind of surprising I'm getting more information today. This is kind of the most conversation I know that we've had really about it. So I think that says a lot about our need and our effort to do more in our communities in terms of having these kind of conversations. So I definitely look forward, both as a tribal member in my current position and if elected, to start having those conversations. So I'm not avoiding the question, I really am not, but I do think there's a lot of things that you would need to consider. And to say today, yes, I support it, would be untrue based on the fact that I don't have all the facts. And I do have some information, some experience that tells me that we have to be careful and we have to think about the health and the well-being of our tribal members first and foremost. So, thank you.
No, I think it's okay to say that you don't oppose and don't support. You need more information, so I think that's a valid answer. All right, next question from the audience. Anybody? Andy, Charles, Monty.
We'll let our elder go first.
Mine has to do with transparency in the tribal decision-making. We currently have a Wednesday night meeting where issues come up and they're voted on by the council. The problem I have with that is everything that's voted on at the Wednesday night meeting has already been decided early in a private meeting without tribal members being present. What I'm asking you is, would you support a concept where the decision making was made and done in an open meeting? It doesn't, the Wednesday night meetings to me now are like a dog and pony show. You're going through the process of appearing like you're making decisions, but the decisions have already been made. Most governmental agencies, like for instance our Lane County commissioners here, they are not allowed to have private conversations about decision making. They're only allowed to make decisions in an open forum. What I'm asking you is, would you support all tribal council decisions being made in an open forum?
Fantastic question. I'll give you guys a moment to think about that. And it's very true what Monty said. Most government entities, and a lot of tribes included, only allow decisions to be made in an open forum. Would you support that? Mark, you had your hand up.
Yes, I would. And because any decision that I'm going to make, and if I disagree with the rest of the council, I'll vote against it and explain the reason that I voted. So, but then there are times that, the council still needs a little bit of time to discuss some of the issues, in private anyhow. But at least if people want to come up and ask questions during the meeting, that they should be allowed to do that.
Thanks, Mark. All right, go ahead. Michael, Tommy,
Yeah, you're right, absolutely. That is how most governments work, and I hadn't really thought of it that way. And I think it is. I would support that, because I think the more conversations you have and the more open they are, the better results from that. You get a diverse opinion that way, and I think that's always a good thing. And I think, for me, I remember the community meeting we had where we were talking about advisory votes, and I was kind of disappointed with the whole process because, I kind of have my input, but I really want to know what the tribal council people think, because it really doesn't matter if none of them have any opinion on it, or they don't want to go anywhere that direction that I'm thinking. And I think we should know what their opinions are on the things that we're talking about. I wish, kind of when we did these meetings, I was just in the council on Friday, and I was looking at their table, on the round table, and I wish we had more of that type of a discussion, because that is more of a traditional way where, we're all facing each other, we're all having these conversations, and I would love to go more to that route. But definitely, I think you're right, Monty, that does lead to better decision making and better outcomes. So yeah, I would definitely support it. Oh, I do want to note though that one of the things that I had asked for is within the meetings, when they sign off and there's the yes and the abstain, that they listed at least their initials, so we could see how the people were voting, instead of it just being 6 of 9 or 7 of 9, actually name them. And we have done that. They've responded to that, so I do like that as well.
Thanks. So I have Tanya next, and Chris, and Dave.
I have a feeling Chris and I might be saying almost the same thing. Do you want to go? You want to go first? I would let you.
Okay.
It's fine.
That way you guys
We're
can
gonna
accuse each
last
other of
time
stealing thunder.
Last time I beat him.
So to answer your question, I'm not going to say all decisions need to be discussed publicly. I would say as many decisions as legally possible. There's going to be decisions that are impossible to debate publicly.
I understand that.
Yeah. So, and I would say that we do live stream our Legislative Action Committee meetings on Tuesday mornings, which is where a lot of the discussion happens regarding some of the resolutions that are passed on Wednesday nights. Now, we don't live stream a lot of the work sessions in council chambers where additional discussion goes on. Usually by the time something arrives in Legislative Action Committee, there's been significant talk around it, and it's reached a level where there will still be discussion, especially if it's something contentious. But I don't oppose the general concept of what you're asking for, because I think what you're asking for is for people to explain their decisions. Maybe not every decision, because some decisions, like is whether or not to apply for a grant, you're just approving a grant application. But I think what you're asking for is a decision that's really important, or one that is of huge interest to the membership. People should explain why they voted yes and why they voted no. I do think we need to revisit the idea of putting a lot of our recordings of our work sessions online. I don't know how many people are going to be really interested in that, because I think it'll come off like C-SPAN. It might be more information than you really want, but at least it's available. So I agree with what you say. I just think there's going to be some situations where it's impossible. If it involves litigation, then that's going to be subject to attorney-client privilege. And I'm in law school now. There's like state regulations surrounding that. Some of these other, are you about to start tapping your mic? No.
You got 30 seconds.
Some of these other decisions, like on our investment advisors, and I know this because I wanted to declassify this report that they gave us, well, we have a contract with them and that's proprietary information, because then anyone could just see their strategy and say, well, I'm just going to invest the way this company is investing for Grand Ron. And so that's part of their strategy, and I think they should have an expectation that that'll remain private. But other than that, I think the vast majority, I think 80–90% of the discussions we make should be public, and I think people should be able to explain why they supported a certain decision. It's still going to be voluntary. You're going to have people who are just going to clam up. They don't really want to talk about it. So you can only enforce it so much. So that's my answer.
I guess my answer is a little bit different, but not only, I don't feel like you're just asking tribal council to explain their decisions, but to include the tribal member along the process and give them an opportunity.
I'm asking that the decisions would be made in a public forum.
Right, the discussion and all of that.
Lane County, for instance, when they held a Lane County Commissioner meeting, it's publicized ahead of time what's going to be on the agenda and what decisions are going to be made. They're not allowed to even discuss how they're going to vote on that with each other prior to the meeting. The discussion goes on in a public forum. The decisions are made in a public forum. And in most cases, the citizens can get up and ask questions during the decision-making process. That's what I'm actually asking.
Yeah, and I think an important point there is that we're not asking you guys to carry body cameras around all the time. But if you guys are actually voting, that should be open and accessible and public.
And to me, the Wednesday night meetings are a waste of time. You've already made the decisions. You never see a negative vote at a Wednesday night meeting because the decision's already been made. You know, that Wednesday night meeting is just for show, to pretend like you're making decisions in the open when they've already been made.
Right, okay, I see what you're saying. So I would say that, you know, we do have agendas that get posted, and they're not always posted early, but for our work sessions, because you're correct, a lot of that work and often the decisions are made during the work sessions. And then we go to the Wednesday night meeting and it's just that final action. You're correct about that. The work sessions that we have, they are open unless they're, you know, executive session for legal reasons. They are open, sounds like similar to what you're talking about, where tribal members can come in and they can sit and listen during the work session that we have on issues. But then again, that only reach people that live in Grand Ronde or don't work and can come in on a weekday and do that. So I think where we need to have improvement is, like I had mentioned at the Portland meeting, developing some kind of an executive team report that goes out to the membership that talks about, you know, a summary of what issues we're working on, what are some of our ongoing issues, some of our short-term, some of our long-term goals, some of the decisions that we're making or getting ready to make, and doing a better job of getting the work session agendas out to the membership so they know when we're going to be discussing what, and then putting those work sessions on this listserv so members can be informed the entire way, and then they can provide input to all of council, individual councils in any way that they want, phone calls, emails, drop by, however they want to do that. And then I think also then if you add in the opportunity at the Wednesday night meetings that the tribal members that don't live there and can't attend are able to submit live questions, I think all of that will kind of get to your issue of us, you know, making these decisions before we go out to the Wednesday night meeting. And Chris is right, some of those issues or decisions, we certainly have had at least one meeting. Some of them we've had many, many meetings, hours and hours of discussion on those. And, you know, just letting the tribal member know that that's available for them to listen to and understand how the decisions are made, and provide them an opportunity to have real input, meaningful input, not just at the Wednesday night meeting when we're already decided.
So I had David next, then Angela, and then we'll go back to you, Mark and Lisa.
Mark, you actually opened on this one, so we'll get back to you in a minute, Mark. So, David?
Yeah, I'm in favor of having sort of more open decisions, open council meetings. I think there's a number of problems. I think some people have talked, Tanya breached. One issue I have is how do you create a forum where everybody has access who wants access, and it doesn't privilege people in Grand Ronde. So how do you get people from Eugene to be in that meeting if they don't have time to drive every Wednesday to Eugene? So the problem would be that then the people that are in Grand Ronde would have the majority opinion of that, and so it would privilege the people that live there. And so this gets back to some of the issues we had with communication, with how do you open up an open communication format where everybody has access in an equal way. So that's an issue. I think that though your question, part of it is, I mean, I feel it too, I have felt it for years, is this implicit problem with how decisions are made at the tribe. And I think a lot of tribe members have said they don't trust a lot of times how decisions are made. And I would like to really see a more direct, sort of comprehensive planning effort at the tribe, so that tribe members are aware of ahead of time why decisions are being made for development of the campus, for various economic development activities, for programs and policies, because it's already in the plan. We've already had that discussion. Tribe members have already been involved in that discussion. We've already seen the minority and majority opinions on that. They're already aware of that. And so we haven't yet, I guess, tilled that field yet. We haven't yet prepared tribal members for understanding all that behind that, for having access to the reports, even the internal reports you get from legal, from finance, about whether or not this thing, this policy is going to work or not. I mean, how do we do that? And perhaps, this notion of a summary or a minority and majority report would have to be what we implement in order to give everybody that education, perhaps, on the individual issues. But I really think that a lot of this could be handled if we had a more direct planning effort at the tribe, where all tribe members were involved at some level, and we know where we're going. Because right now, I don't know where we're going. Where are we going with developing the campus? Right now, I mean, I can't say that we're going to develop the next building. Where's that going to be? The next road, the next sidewalk? I don't know. And a lot of large organizations, businesses, governments, they have a huge comprehensive planning effort where they actually plan out their campus, they plan out developments of the campus. Everybody knows where they're going, what the next steps are going to be. And we work towards that goal. And so we have that already pre-arranged, pre-known. Everybody knows. And so right now, when I worked in culture, a lot of decisions were made based on opportunity. Well, there's somebody offering a grant for that project, we'll do that now. But is that the way we should be developing as a tribe? Based on what money's available? What federal money's available? I don't know. I mean, that's a question that I would pose to the membership. Is that what you want in terms of planning the future? And I would venture a guess that that's not what you want. You want to know what's going to happen in the future, where we're going as a tribe, what our direction is, what our mission, all that stuff. Thanks.
Perfect. Angela.
Monty, that was a good question. Thank you for making everyone aware of that, because I have attended Wednesday night meetings, and I also noticed that all of the decisions were made without any real discussion during that meeting. We've all heard that council wants to be more transparent, and I think that that would definitely be a way to be more transparent. I believe that all of the meetings, obviously excluding anything that could result in legal action, all the meetings should be recorded and should be available for membership to view. It would help keep council more accountable for their decisions. They would be able to describe why they made their decisions on any of the subjects at hand. So yes, I would support that. I think that it should be available to all membership. We need to know why the decisions are being made.
So Mark, so I want to give Lisa an opportunity to maybe comment, and then we'll go back to you, Mark, because you did have time left on your 3 minutes.
I definitely support transparency. I think if I heard the question or how I kind of am hearing it is it's also about the philosophy of how decisions are made. So making decisions in an open forum where you're asked the question and you really have to speak from your heart, your experience, your knowledge, and not maybe having conversations with people who are convincing you to support a decision one way or another. I think that, at least for me, I didn't get to go to the first PAC meeting, but the last two, it really appears that we need to be looking at that we may need to look at restructuring some of the way we've done things to make sure that we are meeting the needs of the membership and including them in conversations. So I think transparency is very important.
Thanks, Lisa. Mark, we've got about a minute and a half still.
Okay. I got shut off. Okay, first of all, when I served on the tribal council prior, when I was chair, that whether it was a resolution or a motion, I would give a brief explanation. So for the benefit of the audience, here's what the tribe is voting on. Whether it's property purchase, an ordinance enactment, or any other matter pertaining to the tribe. But you have to have a meeting where there's a public record. You have to have minutes to reflect the decisions made. Now sometimes if you get a disagreement amongst the council, like during the daytime, that's where they can negotiate their points out to each other, then get it ready and prepared for the final vote. But so the Wednesday night meetings, in my mind, I guess are a necessity that at least gives the tribal members an opportunity to ask the questions or to voice, whatever concerns or, they may have with it, any particular action that the tribe wishes to take it. So it's kind of a double-edged sword because there's going to be sometimes you're going to have a disagreement amongst the council. And so, do we want to spend about 2 or 3 hours at a tribal council meeting so listening to the debate about why they don't like the decision that they're about to make or whatever?
Thanks, Mark. Oh, you have something else? Go ahead if you have something else. You done? Okay. I thought you were putting your mic down, so I was going to move to the next question in the audience. Who'd like to go next? Andy.
So tell me about your moral compass. What ethics do you stand on? What guides you? And how does that work in your decision-making both as a council member as well as just living day-to-day life? What's your moral compass? That's the question.
Great. All right, think about that for a second. Who'd like to go first? How would you describe your moral compass? What is your moral compass? Fine? Fine.
That's a very good question. I don't know if I can do it in a couple minutes. And then I want to
Speed talk.
I know. I want to remind everybody. I apologize. I have a wedding in Staten, so I do have to leave at 12:30. So I'm
Me
thinking
too.
this might be my last question. But okay, can we start my 2 minutes now?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about your moral compass. So for me, I am a child of God, and I believe in the lessons of Jesus, and that is significant in my moral compass. And then beyond that, it's family. For me, I apply my philosophy, how I apply my philosophy in my family. I apply that to the tribe as well. As far as I believe that, for example, my husband and I, we both work, we do well, we meet our own basic needs, and then we have extra money. I kind of think of that like per capita, right? So now, am I comfortable just spending all that money on myself? No, not if my dad is struggling, not if my mom is struggling. So I do believe in generosity and compassion and understanding that everybody's in a different journey in this life. They're in a different place in their journey. And I don't judge people for that. I try to love people through their struggles. I try to always lift people up, even in my own life. My dad's a retired Vietnam veteran. He's disabled. We got a hardship. He lives with us on our property. We take care of him. And I would never, ever allow him to not have his basic needs met and be out spending all kinds of money. So I believe that applies to how I do things on tribal council, and it helps me find balance in decisions that I make. I do believe strongly in support per capita because it is the, one benefit that's equal to all tribal members. But I do struggle when I know that we have tribal members that, have domestic violence in their home, or they have drug abuse in their home, or, they can't get a job, those kind of things. And I believe that we're morally responsible to take care of those people. And not just hand them money, but teach them and give them the skills, but support them while they're gaining those skills and making those improvements in their life. So I apply a lot of just what my mother's taught me, both my grandmothers on both sides of my family. Family first, God, Jesus, family first, and yourself last.
Thanks, Tanya. Before I go to the next person, thank you for coming, Tanya. We will let you go a little early maybe because this will take more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't want you to have to get up in the middle of somebody else's speaking.
Oh, okay.
But thanks for coming, and great job with all the forums this year, and good luck to you, Tanya. We'll see you later. Who'd like to go next? What's the question, David?
Well, this is a tough one for me. I guess not so tough, but 'cause I have a lot of thoughts about it. It's hard to pin them down to one thing. My mom grew up Roman Catholic. She still has a zip-up Bible and stuff. And I know the rest of my family, my dad's side, were non-religious. I believe they came from a Roman Catholic background. So I got a lot of that as in my youth, in terms of, I was born in a military brat, born in Germany, and then, moved to the United States and stuff. And then early on, I became to realize from what my dad told me is that, we're the descendants of these people from the tribes of Oregon that were almost exterminated. And so I became aware early on in my life that we're kind of a rarefied culture, people. And so, and then I read pretty extensively the philosophy of the world, and I realized that our peoples were nearly exterminated by the United States, that what has happened to us over the last 150 years has been a travesty, has been of justice, and has not been written about very well, not been recognized by the United States, and so I saw that as almost my duty, in a sense, to look at all aspects of that in a scientific way and bring that out, regardless of religion or anything like that. So I guess I'm a true scientist in that regard, where I look at all aspects and say whatever I have to in order to tell the truth. And I try to do in education. I went into education late. I was already working in restaurants. I'd been a manager in restaurants, pizza restaurants and stuff, and being a pizza maker and doing all this stuff. And I didn't start school until I was like 25 or so. And at that point, I'd already sort of been playing for a number of years and working in restaurants. And I decided I needed to devote myself to my studies, because I saw the tribe growing up. I mean, the tribe was literally restored the same year I graduated from high school. So I saw the tribe growing and developing, and I thought I'd devote myself to, at some point, moving back to the tribe and moving back into the area and devoting myself to the tribal development in some aspect. And so I had a talent for science, for scientific inquiry, and so I went that direction. And so that's my moral compass. really this need to almost instinctual, really, it feels a need to give back my life, my learning back to the tribe as much as possible. And don't waste my time, don't do anything that's useless, really kind of devote myself to that mission. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. What Michael next?
That's a good question, Andy. I like many of us, I think, whose family grew up around Grand Round. I grew up Roman Catholic as well. And I always hear people say, once you're a Catholic, you're kind of always a Catholic. And I'm not a practicing Catholic, and I was actually the first member in my family that didn't go through confirmation. And that was, 14 years old. That was quite a struggle and kind of a disappointment to my mom. But I felt confirmation was confirming a belief that I just couldn't do at that time. And it's probably partly, I lost my brother when I was 8 years old, and he was 15. And partly that made me search for a lot of things even from that early age, and I think that's why I couldn't go through that process. But it sent me through a lot of exploring just different things. Even in college, I took philosophy of religion, and I've read the Quran, I've read writings of Buddha, I've read the Book of Mormon, not all of it, but some of it. And as you read and study a lot of these things, you see a lot of commonalities within all of these belief systems. And so some of them that I just wrote down real quickly, do no harm, love one another, treat everyone the same. And from the native part of it, I love the giving. Anybody comes to my place, they're going to be fed, they're going to be taken care of. And that's something that even my grandparents, and I learned it from them as well. So my moral compass, in doing all that searching, it's also guided me as far as in accounting. So I was talking about doing some accounting work for nonprofits, and then so when you become a trusted advisor, in working with a director, and when they want to do something that is not right, you just have to say, no, I can't do that. And didn't want to really throw them completely under the bus. So I was basically just saying I was going to remove myself. I had too much going on, and I wanted to take a break from all that. But it caused the board of directors to wonder why. And I think that's when you built up that credibility and that trust, and because I had that moral compass to guide me to say I can't do that, and it actually led to some changes, and within that board I was actually the one that stayed. and I think that's the lesson. Sometimes just saying, no, I'm not going to participate, that really makes a big change and a positive change.
Thanks, Mike. Let's go next. Chris.
So I'll be honest, Andy, this is one of the hardest questions that's ever been asked at one of these forums, because you can take it in any direction. You really can. Michael mentioned the books he's reading. I'm reading book 3 of Game of Thrones, so I don't know if that says anything about me. No, it's not, but it's such a serious subject, I felt it was good to lighten the mood. For me, I believe that you need to live and let live. Michael mentioned the line of do no harm, which I think is from the oath that doctors take, right? First, do no harm. Do right in your life. Try to help people. And that translates to my position here as we're in a position to where we can help tribal members improve their lives vastly. And that should be our goal every day when we get up in the morning. And when we make a decision that harms people, we need to do a lot of soul searching on that, because I'm gonna dip into a category that Angela alluded to earlier about disenrollments, and I look back on like the really high profile disenrollment case that occurred in this tribe, and I asked myself, how is the tribe better off for having gone through that? I can't imagine the families better off. They definitely are not better off. But how is the tribe better off through having gone through that era? I don't think we are. There's wounds have been caused that may never heal. Some people passed away believing that the tribe had betrayed them. And to me, that's tragic. So it was actually like witnessing the disenrollment while I was in Michigan that kind of brought me back to the tribe, because I didn't feel I could remain silent on it. And I did actually participate in the first round of disenrollments before I left for Michigan. And let me tell you, I think about that quite a bit. So I think that we're here to help people. We're here to help one another. We're here to help one another reach our goals without harming people. And if you're doing something that is routinely causing a lot of harm to people, you need to really dig deep and ask yourself why you're doing that. So I don't know if that's, believe me, I could spend a couple hours answering this question, but sitting here right now, that's what comes to my mind. Oh, and I would just say one last thing. When you can, play by the rules. I'm studying law, so I'm not going to tell people to break the rules. And if a rule or law is unjust, stand against it. At one point, it was legal in this country to tell people that if your skin's too dark, you got to go sit in the back of the bus. Just because something's legal does not make it right.
Let's go next.
I'm afraid to.
All right, we'll do Angela and then Mark.
Okay, that was a good question, and that was a really good answer, Chris. So what guides me? What guides me is my journey that I have been through to get where I am today. I think it's important to always remember where you came from and look back on that often. For me, it helps me stay humble. I was a teen parent. I became a single teen parent at the age of 18. And yet again, a single teen parent at the age of 20 with 2 children. And I am yet again a single parent at my age. 3 children. But that just helps me be who I am. I wouldn't change that for the world. Everyone has a story to tell, so we don't know what their story is, so don't judge them. I think it's important that we help those who can't help themselves. And like you just heard, being a council member, it is the council's duty to help our tribe and to ensure that our tribe is going in the right direction. And the other thing that really moves me is I wanted a better life for my children. I grew up in poverty, and it really wasn't something that my parents could help. But it was something I could change, and I wanted to change that for my children. And I think having done so, now it's my turn to give back to the tribe with my professional experience as well as my personal experiences. I want to be able to utilize all of that and make a change in this tribe.
Mark.
Okay, well, first of all, the moral compass. Don't worry, I'm not a devil worshiper. And if you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you, the best of my ability to tell you the truth, even though you may not like it, but it will be that. I've never done anything, I've never knowingly done anything while serving on the tribal council, either illegal or unethical. And so any decision that I make is going to be what I feel is going to be best for the tribe overall.
Thank you, Mark. Lisa.
My moral compass really comes from just kind of a basic philosophy of really helping people. That's what I love to do. I've had the honor of getting to do that with our tribe for the last 21 years. I think probably prior to that, just in my childhood, I was always kind of the person that was helping friends get along and relationship building probably most of my life. I have really made an effort in my 21 years to always make the most fair and honest decisions based on facts, based on research, based on knowledge, and really work with people in the best way you can. Definitely, I think people have said some great comments. Definitely very important to never cause harm to anyone. We're not always able to provide what someone needs, but we can always listen and we can always be there to do our best to guide them when able. I also, in my personal life, you asked about that, I've really had the honor, the last 10 years I've got to raise my 2 nieces, and that's been a blessing with their mom and their dad in that process. And I think anytime you can help and come together to better anyone's life, you take an opportunity. And as tribal members, we have that responsibility to do that whenever we can, whether we're on tribal council, whether we're in a position working for the tribe, whether we work for a tribe outside and there's some type of assistance we can give. We all just really need to help each other, and that's my moral compass.
Thanks, Lisa. All right, other question from you guys? Yeah.
Can I just follow up on that
Oh,
real
sure,
quick?
go ahead.
So, thank you very much. You know, I know that's a hard question and one that sometimes we don't really stop and think about, but I guess I would just encourage you to think about what everybody else said. There was a lot of common things that were said, and a lot of things that probably more in common than separate us. And as you move on to tribal council, whoever gets elected, think about that there's more that binds us together in common than separates us. And just, you know, would ask that, again, whoever gets on council, work towards that unity and strengthen that common bonds between us. So I too have to go to a wedding, but thank you very much for coming down and spend time with us today.
Thanks.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm Marta Clifford. In our family, we have the situation where over the years, we've heard over and over and over again, we're gonna look into disenrollment. We're gonna look into this. We're gonna look into this. We're really tired of people just saying, we're gonna look into it. We've had people in our family that were disenrolled. They're still disenrolled. They were never re-enrolled. That's wrong. We all know that's wrong. We have split families, and that is horrible. I don't know how those kids do it. I do not know. I really want to know what is going to be done as far as how are we going to fix this? We have to be able to fix this. It's not just our family. There's a lot of families. I know we've tried, over and over, but there has to be a way to fix it. With love and kindness, we just can't let it go on. I just would like some opinions.
So, let me make a question, Marta, if that's all right. So,
Yes.
if elected, what would you do to fix our enrollment problems?
Kind of talked about this last year too, and for me it is those split families that just tugs at the heart. I can't imagine sitting across the dinner table with my brother and him being enrolled and me not enrolled, and we have the exact same qualifications. I just can't imagine that. That must really be a touchy subject for a lot of families. And we are kind of at a stalemate on this, and I've been saying all along, and I know it doesn't fix everything, but I think it's at least a start, and it fixes this aspect of it. I don't know why even when we wrote this law, why we didn't have a grandfather clause that would just address this simple issue right here. And it goes across the board. If you have a sibling that's on and you qualify the same, you should be enrolled. We should grandfather those people in. And I know there's a lot of other considerations around with enrollment, but for me, that's the most important thing, and I would push that. And I know it won't make everybody happy, it really won't, and there's more to do. But if we could at least establish that grandfather clause, at least heal those split families, that's a first start, and that's where I would go with that.
Yes, because the ones that were disenrolled, that was really hard. I went to the hearings for it, and it was devastating.
Oh, shit, without a doubt. Even the people that have been in for 30 years, I likened it to if you adopted a child and 30 years later, when it comes time to settle the estate, and this child's been your brother, sister forever, and then you say, nah, you're not really a family member. So yeah, no, it's just from the matters of the heart, I just don't know how you do that.
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, here's my question, is if the people got disenrolled, for whatever reason, my question is, how did they get enrolled in the first place? So I don't know the answer to that, but at least that's what I'm willing to look into. That's the best answer I can provide for you right now. I know that's something that you've heard probably time and time again, but I can't just say I'm going to wave the magic wand and fix the enrollment issue, because I don't think that's going to happen. But I'm willing to at least make an effort to figure out how we got to this situation that we're in today.
Great, David.
Well, I mean, it's a travesty. I think that we need to do something, we need to work on solutions. It's amazing that we have split families, that some people are enrolled, some people are not, in the same bloodline. That's just wrong. My own thoughts are pretty broad about this. I've studied blood quantum pretty extensively, and I truly believe that at some point in the future we're going to have to get to the point where we simply go towards descendancy as from the role as the way it is, because we're all, I mean, every generation is going to have a certain percentage that are going to vary outside the tribe. And so you're going to get to a point in 100 years where you're going to have less people in the tribe. And we're going to actually be terminating ourselves in that sort of scenario, which we're rapidly heading towards, actually, in a few generations from now. So every family has the situation. And unless we, you know, some of these, I mean, I like Michael's solution. It's kind of an elegant solution for that issue. But some of this is simply band-aids to solve problems that if we just had descendancy from the original role, that we would solve all the problems. And I can't imagine any other nation on the face of the earth that doesn't want their members to continue in their nation. It's only tribes that have that, where you can literally not be a member of the tribe because you don't have a vote. Only tribes do that. So it's just amazing, and I am anxious to get involved in the issue on council, because I'd like to bring some of my own studies into the issue, and that's I think overall we really need to study extensively how tribes in the past, established their own enrollment policies, and we need to begin listening to the elders who made decisions in the past about who was going to be a member of the tribe and who not, and maybe even capture a piece of our sovereignty, capture back from the U.S. government, that we control our own enrollment rather than go along with policies that were instituted by the federal government in the 19th century about who can be a member of the tribe and who can not, based on whether or not they had land on the reservation. And that is a huge issue, but unless we take control of that ourselves, we're still going to be dependent on the federal government for all kinds of things, and they don't have any reason to keep us around. They're perfectly willing. We're seeing this in the new administration. They're perfectly willing to perhaps take steps to eliminate our sovereign rights for land, all kinds of things, because they pay. They pay to keep us around. And at some point, it's usually 30 to 50 years. There'll be a change in federal policy, and they're going to want to get rid of tribes again. A new termination policy. And I think they're seeing the beginnings of that right now.
Thank you for that very difficult question. Actually, it's not very difficult for me to answer, because that is one thing I really, really am interested in looking into, split families. I actually am one of the split families. I am enrolled, my children are enrolled. My sister, who shares the same mother and father as myself, is not enrolled. She's not eligible. She has 6 children who are also not eligible. We're not the only families that is affected by this, and it's unfortunate. We are tribal members, and we're proud to be tribal members, as would she be if given the opportunity. The blood quantum, like David said, and I've been saying for a while, we are self-terminating. We really are. I would like to see us look into enrollment and find out, obviously there was some very, very poor decisions made at one point, which led to the 99th Amendment, in my opinion. I think that it's important for us to review the current rules and regulations regarding enrollment as well as disenrollment. Disenrollment, in my opinion, is ridiculous. It needs to stop. It's embarrassing. It's making our tribe, our tribal government just look greedy. I don't like that at all. I absolutely disagree with disenrollment. What is done is done. Who are we to go back and try to say, okay, well, you've been called a tribal member for this many years, now you're not. It's embarrassing, and I would really like to see that stop. Parent on roll, I don't even know where that came from. Why? Why make the change? I'm not familiar with the reasons behind that, but I don't agree with it. And I did like what Michael said, but again, like David said, that would be a Band-Aid, but hey, that's one step going in the right direction. But something does need to happen. We need to review our enrollment, find out where changes need to be made. And I don't know if maybe there just needs to be a committee that can do that, but we want to make sure that next time it is reviewed, that it's reviewed fairly, not based on whose family member is whose family member. It needs to be reviewed fairly for all of our membership.
Chris or Lisa? Chris?
Personally, I'm starting to wonder if this is not something that we might want to have a committee or task force review again, because we know the answer. We had the enrollment requirements ad hoc committee established in 2005. We've got the original chair here today. And they made their recommendations, and we put out the recommendations separately in 2007, 2008, and they both failed, although they both got 55% and 60%. So most of tribal members at that time supported that. We've tried to amend it since then. You've had like a lot of vocal opposition to it, and I'm not sure why. You'll always hear the argument of bundling, but of course, when it was bundled 2 years ago, nobody objected to it, and then they objected to bundling a year later. I think that's just kind of a distracting argument. I think what's missing is honest dialogue. People need to be honest about why they oppose certain changes and why they support others, because I think if you take the approach of just fixing one of the problems from the 99 Amendment, you're gonna alienate a lot of people who rightfully will ask, why are you ignoring my problem? You know I have this problem. Why are you guys making no attempt to fix it? So I think maybe another committee is the answer, because anymore it seems like if a constitutional amendment is driven by council, the tribe has become so partisan that there's a certain percentage of people who are just going to oppose it because they don't like the council members who've proposed it. And it's unfortunate that we've gotten that way in this tribe, and maybe it's just natural to democracies. But at some point, I think just constitutional amendments in general need to come from a group of people who are viewed more objectively and who aren't viewed as having some sort of underlying motive. Because in general, constitutional amendments, even non-enrollment ones, are just not passing. Some of them have failed narrowly, but it doesn't seem likely that we're going to get many constitutional amendments passed anymore. So maybe turning over the recommendations to someone outside of council is the way to address this problem.
Well, I definitely agree with supporting the issue to change parent on the roll. I think Michael's idea was a great idea in terms of grandfathering people in. I feel that it's a conversation we've been having a long time, and it's a little, I guess, disheartening that we haven't done anything or moved forward before now. I believe or feel strongly that, if we don't start having these conversations about enrollment, having the tough conversations, we're going to be in the same position 5 years from now, 10 years from now. People have a lot of knowledge, a lot of insight, a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions around this issue, and they should. And we need to figure out how to start capturing that and start developing a plan. We need a timeline, we need a plan. We can't wait, because then what ends up happening is we end up making decisions that we didn't think through. And I think that is what happened with the parent on the roll. I don't think it was intentional to split families. I don't think that was what people wanted to do. I think that we just didn't have a plan. So I definitely think that that needs to happen.
I've got 2 questions that were written in. Is there another question from the audience before I do this? Okay, let's go to Charles and then we'll go ahead. So we'll get to both of your questions. Go ahead, Charles.
So we're in Eugene, and it's not a very well-populated meeting. So I tend to believe that the further away you get from Grand Ronde, the less engaged membership is with politics, with benefits, with the culture. And if what you say is true, Chris, if 50% only of voting memberships submit the any kind of like formal request for information, it's pretty important that you have some kind of engagement or re-engagement for the tribal membership. And I'm just wondering if anybody has thought about that and what you think about how important it is to engage membership into the different programs that the tribe has or the different cultural aspects of the tribe.
Okay. So, how important, and I guess what ideas do you have to re-engage members? Because it's true, we have a lot of apathy, a lot of folks that are not engaged. So Mark, go ahead.
Well, when the tribe is first seeking restoration, they were required to set up some kind of a geographical boundary. And so that's what they did after sending out what surveys they were able to do back then. This is long before I even served on the tribal council. Is that the Restoration Act stated that there would be a 6-county service area. Dam Hill, Multnomah, Washington, Marion, and
Multnomah.
Polk.
Yeah, Polk and Tillamook. And so, as far as some of the other programs, one of the things I always advocated when I was on tribal council, like for health insurance and educational opportunities, those should be made available to any enrolled tribal member, regardless of where they live. And so I know the 6-county service area, it probably, it wasn't perfect, but then I wasn't involved at that time when they were drafting legislation to get the tribe restored. And so that's one thing I'm always looking for in ways, just to make sure that all the basic services and maybe housing assistance, purchasing grants or whatever, the tribe can start to, I'd like to see the tribe do some more of that.
Thanks,
So
Mark.
I hope that answered your question then.
Thanks, Mark.
And Chris, I am going to request to be excused. I got a family event that I want to go to.
Okay. I'm Brian, by the way, Mark, but Chris is your opponent in the candidate. Absolutely. Family comes first, so thanks for letting us know, and great job, Mark, and good luck to you this year. So,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Good to see you. I think Chris has his hand up first, and then we'll go to Lisa.
Well, you came in, I think, a little late, because we did address a question, I think, that was similarly along these lines about how to get tribal members engaged, and we had talked about like a listserv, and my response was, the development of other media, like maybe an online radio or TV station. But I think as far as specific to Eugene, some people didn't think it was cost effective, but I really did like having the satellite office here. And my observation would be that when we closed the satellite office, I think it was in 2012, our attendance at the general council meetings here in Eugene when we revived them dropped. And I don't know if people in Eugene felt slighted or what. All I can do is ask. But the last time we had a general council meeting here in Eugene back in April, we didn't even meet quorum. So I think what helped, and again, some people don't feel it's cost effective, but I did like when we would go out to other geographical areas and have community meetings. My first year on council, 2005, we went to the Seattle Tacoma area. We had like 50 tribal members show up. We've been to Bend. We had several dozen tribal members show up. We went to Yakima. And those things may cost several $1,000s, but I think those tribal members appreciated it because they felt like the tribe was engaging them. I do think some of the things we discussed previously would help, but one of the things that I'm hoping will increase engagement is introducing regularly advisory votes, because I think sometimes people get tired of just voting on candidates, and I think they like to vote on issues. And the evidence for me for that is the fact that the election turnout when we have constitutional elections is pretty close to what it is for council elections. So we seem to have like this same core group of people that are voting all the time. The question is, how do you expand beyond that? And I think we had some tools in the past that maybe people didn't think they were cost effective, but I think to the tribal members not located in Grand Ronde, they appreciated that geographic outreach. Other than that, I think the only, well, not the only way, but one of the prime ways to get people more engaged is through online tools, again, social media, maybe a radio station, maybe live streaming our work sessions. I think that's easier than people think, and I think those are good first steps.
So Lisa had her hand up next, and then we'll go David and Angela. And Mike.
So I liked a lot of what Chris said, and I agree that we kind of had that conversation in the beginning. I think even in Grand Ronde right now, we're struggling to engage people in the activities, the events, the programming that we're doing. I think some of that comes from some of what we've talked about is just the hurt and some of the conflict that I think is going on amongst us as tribal members. So I think there's two parts. I think there's one part about look at restructuring things, getting more options for online, but I think there's nothing better than the face-to-face opportunities to do different things. So I don't know if, saying satellite office, if we're in any kind of position to be able to think about doing that, but I do think there's some programming and activities that could happen here that would help bring people together. I'm just going to talk briefly a little bit about Canoe Family, but that's something that we've talked about amongst Canoe Family is how do we do a better job at trying to reach people that don't live in our area and get them to participate. That's a great way to gather. It's a completely, entirely non-political group of people that get together and have one common purpose, and that is to represent the tribe in the best way possible, and to not only in our own communities, but anywhere we're asked to go, we go. We're going to be going to BC, Canada, leaving for there next week. So there's a lot of opportunities to engage people, but first we have to start having conversations so that we can feel like we all want to be together and doing things. So that's kind of my thought. Thanks.
Great job, Lisa. David.
Yeah, I remember, man, in Eugene, we had this amazing office just down the road here, and we had potlucks, and we had art going on, craft. My cousin Tammy Bovee was in here, showing elders how to do exercises and increasing people's flexibility, and we had an amazing thing going on here, and we were really upset at the tribe when they closed the office down. At that time, I was working at Grand Ronde, but I was still around. I was still interacting with the community, and that really was a focal point for a lot of tribal members to get access to culture, to services, to understand how to navigate the bureaucracy of the tribe. And when that went away, that literally all went away. And I guess that's kind of behind some of my thoughts the last couple of years over this notion of a bill of tribal rights. We just don't know, tribal members just don't know how to navigate all the bureaucracy of the tribe, get around things. And with smoke signals coming sometimes late to our doorstep, after the events have already happened, it's hard to be involved in things at the tribe. So how do we do that? Communications is part of it. Open communications, perhaps more timely communications would be better. But I really still think we need an office here. this whole part of Western Oregon is the ceded lands of the tribe. The tribe claims it. We have 7 treaties that were written here and ratified by Congress. This is Eugene and Medford. All these places are central to a lot of the tribes that went to Grand Ronde. This was the place of the Chalamela Calahuillas, right here. And we have still tribe members living here. I lived here. I learned about this place. You know, it's central to Grand Ronde. And so that's all part of it. You know, culture, it would be great to get a canoe family out of Eugene. That'd be awesome, you know. It's their own canoe family using the Willamette River, the McKenzie watershed, get that going. An office could facilitate that. But that sort of that engagement in culture can bring people in. And part of the reason I was thinking of this, back to my Bill of Tribal Rights, is people feel so disengaged from the tribe because their voice doesn't matter in political opinions. They're not heard. There's no culture down here for the tribe. So, you know, what are our rights? You know, what are your rights to do? I mean, we have, if you live here, you have the same rights any other tribe member for accessing services. But obviously, the distance includes that. So, how do we do that? Well, I think the tribe has a responsibility to not just maintain that tribal core, but to reach out and do more stuff in the ceded lands for tribal members to do. I mean, this landscape is our landscape for 10,000 years. Why not?
Thanks, David. All right.
I agree with what Chris said earlier. We do need to expand our geographical area. We do have tribal members everywhere. And it's important that they do realize that council and other members are available to them. And again, like David said, our membership needs a voice. And they need to know that they can reach out. And if they do have wants and needs, they need to express those, because unfortunately, maybe their wants and needs are not even known. So if you want another office in Eugene, maybe let tribal council know that's what is needed. I think that it's important that membership do be engaged, and I would like to see maybe tribal events be held in different areas, not just Eugene, but different areas throughout Oregon. The tribe over in Grand Ronde, they have all kinds of events at the tribal office and right around the tribal grounds. They have family barbecues, and I would like to see that everywhere, not just in Grand Ronde. I would like to see council come out to Eugene a couple times a year and have barbecues and be able to engage in the memberships in the area, as well as Roseburg. And you said Seattle. I know that there are tribal members in Seattle areas as well. It would be nice to be able to reach out to all of the membership.
And Mike.
Yeah, we did really talk about this a lot, like Chris said earlier. So I'm going to focus on engagement more on cultural and education, because why I think it's important is that is what binds us together, is the cultural aspect. And so, when you don't feel that tie, I think that's part of the disengagement process itself. I mean, we have people scattered even across the world, not just here within the Pacific Northwest, clear across the world. And, you know, we've been working on a curriculum for school districts that want to use mascots. And I think Governor Brown is just passing something where it doesn't even matter that all schools are going to have a tribal curriculum, period. But we don't have a tribal curriculum for that education. We don't have a real, you know, the United States has a nationalization test, and it's kind of a minimum amount of history you should know. Well, we don't even have that for ourselves. And I think that's important. We need to know our history, and everybody needs to know it. And everybody, at every stage in their life, there should be, if there's 4 or 5, depending on your cultural belief, you should know what you should know at 5, at 14, as a young adult, as an elder. We should know all of those stages and what's important to our tribe and our tribal history, because Native people have always been about place. And we were all moved to Grand Ronde at some point. Our ancestors moved there. And we've never really completely made that place our own. And so for me, to really get people engaged, I think we need to complete that mission, and we have to find a way to agree that we all believe this is the minimum amount of history, and boy, more would be even better, to bind us together. And so we feel like we're engaged, so we feel that in our heart, that that's where this is our place, this is our home. And if that took, bringing youth home from New York that are living in New York somehow, I'd be all for that. Somehow, I know Lisa at one point was doing a woman's coming of age, and we were working on that. And the men need that as well. And so, engagement-wise, getting out of the other, the meeting Eugene and stuff, but just engaging people in ourselves and our own people, I think that's what I think would be important.
That's fine. You have one more follow-up? Yeah. Go ahead.
Not even a follow-up. No. I just wanted to clarify. I know David mentioned having a canoe family in Eugene. My comment was more for us to do a better job with the canoe family that we have in getting out to other people and engaging you to be part of our, we're all part of the canoe family. And so I wasn't necessarily saying starting a new canoe family. I don't want that to get out there.
Okay. Thanks. So, Del, you had a question too. So just real quick on the time check. I think this is going to be our last question. This will take us to about 2 hours and 20 minutes. And then we'll give you guys some closing comments. Okay. So, Mike.
Oh, well, you did have some write-in ones, you said.
That's all right, but we give preference to people that are here in person.
Oh,
so.
okay. Well, this was just a short follow-up to what Marta had asked about enrollment, because we feel kind of by the social media talk and rumors and that there's an advisory vote to put out parent on the roll correction alone. And so we wanted kind of thoughts on that, because, I have nothing against parent on the roll being corrected, but not if it excludes what affects our family and many more of the ancestor on the restoration roll. So I just kind of wanted to know their thoughts on whether or not they would support just addressing one thing. And I think a few of you did kind of cover it, where you said you wanted it to be fair for all the split families. But we were kind of wondering about if you would support something that came up that only addressed the parent on the roll.
Okay, that's a good question. So the question is, if a motion came forward to vote on only the parent on the roll issue alone, and not be inclusive of all the other problems and split families and issues, are you going to support that if you're elected to council? You would vote to support the parent on the roll only.
Yes, I would support that. I think there's a lot of folks that were affected by that, and I know there's going to be folks that have other issues as well. I know there are, and I've fought, for various interpretations of tribal documents and lost my job over it. So I would totally support that. Yeah.
Thank you for that question. I too would support it. And the reason I would support it is because I think it would be a step in the right direction. Sitting here and saying that I wouldn't support it would just be silly, because I would just be staying in the same position we're currently in. And it's important to start making the decisions to go in the right direction. And hopefully all of the other issues would soon come to the table to be resolved as well.
Let's go next. Chris.
I support addressing all the issues that are adversely impacting families affected by the 1999 amendment, one of which would have been the parent on the roll at time of birth, because I keep hearing people saying parent on the roll. There's two different requirements: time of birth, time of application. As far as sending it, what some people wanted to do on council is just have a completely solo constitutional election on that issue alone. I'm not going to say no, I wouldn't support that, but I would need better arguments made to me as to why we would want to take that approach, because constitutional amendments take a lot of time and money to conduct. And before I would move forward with that, I would need to receive promises from some of my coworkers on council that they intend to address the other issues. Because if you were to watch the October 22nd, 2015 special tribal council meeting that was called to address the parent enrollment time of birth and the parent enrollment time of application, they were bundled together. The council members who wanted to push that forward were non-committal about addressing the other issues. If you don't believe me, watch that council meeting.
That's what we.
So that's kind of my issue, because if you feel an issue is unjust for certain people, you would try to address it for everyone who's impacted by it. And the 1999 amendment impacted a number of people. We've identified the two issues. I need to hear more compelling arguments as to why we want to ignore those who are impacted by not having an ancestor on the restoration roll. Because I haven't heard that, because people keep saying it's right to move forward with this one amendment. Well, you're not just moving forward with the amendment, you are deliberately ignoring people who have situations that need to be addressed. We need to focus on it from that angle, because you have to consider, like with the civil rights movement, was about equality. And if the civil rights movement had just been, you know what, we're just going to make this movement, we're going to make it illegal to be racist, but we're okay with gender discrimination, we're okay with religious discrimination, we're okay with other types of discrimination. We're only going to oppose racism. The civil rights movement probably would not have gotten the traction that it did. So again, if you feel a situation is unjust, you'll try to fix it for everyone impacted by it.
Mike?
Well, I want to make sure I'm getting this right. So is that what you're really asking, is unbundling all of those three things? Or were you specifically saying just the parent on the roll put out?
I was asking specifically what Chris addressed. Are you going to support only the parent on the roll and ignore the rest of it, specifically, not just our family, but that's what affects our family is, and we know, or we feel, then it would be left, it would be ignored, it wouldn't be brought up again. Because to add on another issue is, and I think you addressed it last year, is, and said, you know from your experience with accounting, you can do this. I did it in our family in a few minutes in my head. How many people would this add? Everybody that is impacted with this could look into their family and say, our family would be 10, 20, whatever it would be, that is impacted by no ancestor on the restoration roll. And I think that would make a big difference with people, because on Facebook people would go, well, that would add 6,000 people, you know, throwing out numbers, and it scared everybody.
Yeah, no, and I agree, and I always talk about the database, and we should be able to get that information from our database. We should be able to say this is the impact, and I agree, I think it's probably a smaller amount. That's why I like my grandfather clause, because it is across the board. It doesn't treat anybody special, indifferent, it's across the board. I don't have any problem with putting it all out. I agree with Chris, I don't see how you leave people behind. If you're gonna put one out there, you either gotta put them all out there to be voted on, but you also need the true numbers behind those impacts, and so that it's not rhetoric, so it's not scare tactics, so that we know, yeah, and you know, does it change it? So if the parent on the roll fixes, I don't know, I really don't know, I have no idea, but if it fixes 200 and the other one, parent at time of birth, fixes 50, and then we get down to the last one and we're talking about a small numbers, I think that is a compelling argument for just saying, people, come on, you have split families, just from the level of the heart, can't you see where that would be a problem, and it's really not a big impact. So I like my grandfather clause because it is across the board, and I do think it should be put across the board.
I think, as I kind of mentioned earlier, I definitely support the parent on the roll at time of birth of making that change, and would be willing and open to look at the conversation look at the having that conversation. Like Michael said, I think it is important that we do get all the information and we know what that will look like, and we have access to all of that information. So really, again, it goes back to us having those conversations and sharing that with the membership. So yes.
And then David.
So all you made me think more deeply about this again, and I recall some of the things I've been thinking about before. We've had discussions already today about open meetings, and maybe because, part of the mistrust, I think, over this issue is a lot of decisions about even writing up these constitutional amendments has happened in basically closed session, closed meetings. And so maybe this is the kind of thing that we need to bring into an open format and have everybody just voice their opinion, because why do we have to go and actually look at meetings that, were closed to all members to discuss this kind of stuff? Why do we have to, why shouldn't we all be involved in this issue from the very beginning? Why don't we all have everything out in the open, look at the positives and negatives, look at all the numbers, and figure out together, with open understanding, with full disclosure, what would be the right enrollment policy for the tribe, and address, if we have to do it in if we have to do it in small steps, baby steps, perhaps that's what we need to do. If people identify collectively that there is one big change that could solve a lot of problems at once, then I think let's do that. But I really think that the idea of open format, open meetings would really go well with this issue.
All right, so you guys take a moment to begin thinking about your closing comments. I'll give you guys 3 minutes each to wrap up. The one thing I would share just on the enrollment issue is yesterday at my work at Monty Parazoo Administration, we had a professor, an Ojibwe professor named Anton Troyer, come and speak to our staff, and as part of just kind of sharing, we call it diversity training, so just learning about other cultures, and we do this for a lot of our non-native folks abroad. We have 4,000 employees and only about 60 that are tribal, so we bring in these speakers. And Anton talked about the enrollment issue. What was really fascinating when he talked about this was, and he was advocating for essentially eliminating many of these constraints that tribes have put on their enrollment, because a lot of them are based on eugenics, or the Nazi sciences of the early 1900s. We literally use Nazi science in our enrollment criteria to determine who are members and who are not. And it was really striking when he said that, because it's about racial blood quantum. It is literally about purism of race and purism of thought. We have racial aspects, we have cultural aspects that are all very important to our tribe. Our family, that's blood, right? That's racial. But we are first and foremost a political entity that grants citizenship. And once you grant the citizenship to somebody, you should never be able to take that away. Once you have American citizenship that is granted, only treason, or you willingly giving it up, is the only way you can lose your American citizenship. So we don't even meet the standard of the United States, which is an oppressive entity within our tribal lands. So consider you all to think, we focus on all the various details here. We've got bigger problems to solve, and we have the authority and sovereignty to solve it. We can take an approach to determining who can be a member by granting our citizenship, however we want to do it. And that's something I would just close on that particular subject. So closing statements. Who'd like to go first? 3 minutes each. Lisa.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you all for being here. I've kind of shared this with Brian along the way. The PAC Forum, getting up here and speaking in front of you all is really tough for me. Even though in my own work, this is how we do work. This is how we do work in our community. We have community coalitions. I currently administer a 100% grant-funded program, so I have to have stakeholders and I have to have community participation and involvement in order to do the work we do. And so this is a process I love. However, it's a process that just causes me to lose my sleep at night. However, Last week when I left Portland and today when I leave Eugene, it has been one of the greatest experiences for me. I really appreciate it. And I hope to get better at it as time goes on. But it's been a pleasure to serve the tribe for the last 21 years, and I tell people this all the time. Right now I have the best job in the world. I love working with our youth. I love working with our families, our elders, our community. It's amazing. I'm very honored to have even been nominated. My journey last year was tough. I learned a lot about myself. I've done a lot of work this year to work on things that I felt like I needed to improve on and learn about, and I'm just really excited about the process, and I really appreciate each and every one of the candidates up here. It takes a lot of courage to do this. People have a lot of opinions about you for many different reasons, and I hope that when I leave here that the most important thing to me is that you have good thoughts about me, so I hope that will happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. I'd like to go next. Go ahead, Chris.
It's like Michael said, you do 3 or 4 opening comments and 3 or 4 closing comments. Eventually you want to find something new to say. So I'll try and think of something new to say. Not really, actually. I'm just going to say what I said last week. Well, I want to be consistent. So basically, I feel that I've always stood for openness within government. I've always stood for communication. I may not have always gotten what I wanted, but I think you can't deny that we have made a lot of strides in both those areas over the last 12 to 15 years. It may not be to everyone's satisfaction. I think we've done a pretty good job. And if you vote for me, I think you'll see more of that. I'll keep doing what I'm doing. I'll keep making my podcasts. I'll keep making my videos. I'll keep contributing to my website. That happens to be my skill set, so I'm at a bit of an advantage there, but it's also something I really enjoy doing, and I will keep working on ways to allow tribal members to have access to information and data within their government. I would like for us to be as open as legally possible. There's some situations where that's going to be impossible, and some situations where it's going to be impractical, but we could be revealing a lot more information to our tribal members. I think we're in the process of doing that, and I stand for now what I stood for the first time I ran. Those are kind of the 2 cornerstones, that, and I'd like to see more civic engagement, and I'd like to see more of our tribal members exercising their rights. I think these advisory votes are a good step in the first direction. Hopefully we'll have more of them, and tribal members will get a vote on major policy issues within their tribe. And hopefully we can deal with these constitutional issues as well, namely enrollment. I think there's a way. It just takes people sitting down and having honest conversations with each other. I have a pretty good working relationship with everyone on council. We may get mad at each other a lot at times, but I feel like I'm professional enough and easy enough to work with that we can come back in the next day and get back to the business of the tribe. So I feel like I can stand on my record of what I've done while I've been on tribal council. And I will just say in closing, I am going to continue to go to night school. I think everyone should take advantage of the tribe's educational programs. And I will say that what I'm learning is helping me a lot in this job.
That's great. So we have David and then we'll go back.
So, I'm David G. Lewis, and I want your vote. Is that certain? No, I have other stuff.
So 101 is he going to ask you what?
So yeah, I mean, just like Chris, I mean, I have my own blog. I get information out to people in terms of the history of the tribe and the culture of the tribe all the time. Over 200 articles I've published now on my website, and so, I mean, I believe, like you do, this need to communicate with tribal members as much as possible. And if the tribe doesn't offer a method for that, then do it myself. Because I'm good on the web, I'm good with computers and stuff. So culture is really the answer. I think we need to really look at culture as guiding our what we do. Look to culture for our next directions. And I know a lot of people have. I feel this in the crowd today and other crowds. You can call us a crowd, I don't know.
We are a crowd.
We just hit the minimum, so.
We're the loyal ones.
So I feel though that people still have these questions about where we're going as a tribe. What's our mission? And asking a lot of questions in that direction, because there's a lot of people feel disempowered. They don't know how to interact with the tribe in a good way. They don't know how perhaps to go to meetings and make informed comments because they don't have all the information. There's not a transparency yet established, and so they want to, but there's a lot of impediments. And so I feel that part of that is part of our recovery. We're recovering from some 150 years at least of colonization. Tribe is coming back from being terminated. We're 30-something years into restoration, so it's a process. We got here by being colonized and assimilated, and a lot of effects terminated by the federal government, and now we're in recovery mode. And how long is that going to take? I don't know, but we need to work on that in a more direct manner, I think. So we need to work. I'd like to work on ways of getting all tribe members to work together on these issues, not just council with the tribe, or the tribe with members, but members themselves getting together in meetings and talking about these things and being informed and perhaps studying, learning their histories, just like has been talked about today. And so how do we do that? And I look to you for answers to that. I mean, I have some ideas, probably more than I probably should, but I'd like to see how we implement that stuff. And I really want to hear consistently through, if I get in office, through my term in office, how we do that from you. What do you need? Because I don't know. I can assume a lot of stuff. We can assume a lot of stuff in council, assume a lot of things as leaders of the tribe, but we really want to know from you. And that process perhaps needs to be opened up. That box needs to be blown apart, and to see where we're at with that. I'd like to be a part of that solution, because I think that with my training, with my broad knowledge of Native affairs, that I can be that person for you. So please vote for me.
Thanks, David. Let's go, Michael.
Yeah, searching for things that we haven't said, but the one thing, and David's touched on it twice today, that I really believe in, is we don't have a real path where we're going, where we're headed. We tend to look 1 year out, 2 year out, and Chris and I have talked about this quite a bit. We did it in a podcast, and that's kind of how the government works. But it's not. That doesn't really serve us very well, I don't believe. We need to have more long-term planning, and both economic and otherwise. So this last year, I spent a lot of time, and of course, I'd been listening to tribal members even before that. But just listening to people, so what they want, and we tend to have this. We want to just pick something and say, is this viable in and of itself? And we can't do that, because I believe we need to do some more local investment to support the casino. And this will touch into the other thing. So I have here a copy of what Umatilla is doing, and when I got to work after the weekend, my coworkers made sure it was sitting here on my desk, because something that I've been talking about for 8 years is I would love to have an upscale type bowling alley entertainment center complementing the casino. And I've really just pushed that. And I keep seeing it happening in Vegas now and other casinos. And now Umatilla has a 32-lane bowling alley that they're putting in. They're adding 4 more Cineplex. And why I really think it's a big deal is because when I start studying these bowling alleys, it all started actually in the late 90s, where they really got away from the league bowling mentality. And it was in Greenwich Village, which is a very high rent district, and they told them it'll never work. But it did. And it ended up being 60% of their business is from convention business. And here we have a convention center at the casino that we struggle getting filled. So to me, it really ties into bringing the convention business, bringing people off the highway that maybe don't want to gamble, but maybe their spouse does, or maybe dad wants to, mom doesn't. And the more we get people to spend time on property, the more we're going to be able to get revenue from that. And so I really like those ideas and investment. And then the other things I hear about the community is stuff like elders housing. Currently it's all income based. So my own parents, my mom has a good pension and dad's, retirement, they can't get elders housing because they are overqualified, I guess. And so if we had some way to give elders housing, I hear it a lot, yeah, if we had elders housing that was market rate or something like that. Tribal members want housing, period, that you could purchase and develop a neighborhood. And I think that would be great. Warm Springs does it. I have family in Warm Springs that they all live in their house. They don't own the land, but they own the home itself. And there's all kinds of local things. We want a grocery store. We want a telecom. Chris talks about the telecom. But the more we invest locally, the more all of those things become viable together. Individually, maybe not so, but the more we bring people to that community, even as far as employees at the casino would like to see some housing options, then the more that money stays in the local community instead of leaking out to McMinnville and Salem and Lincoln City. And as that money stays in, then now a grocery store becomes more viable. I know, I'm going to wrap it up. Now a grocery store becomes more viable. And now, yes, Rex Haller, a pool becomes more viable. So those are the things that I think if we invest locally, they have a tendency to almost snowball and develop more.
Thanks, man. All right, Angela, bring us on.
Okay, I agree. I think we definitely need to build more in Grand Ronde and bring more people out there, and I did talk about that before, but today I just want to talk about and remind you all that ballots are coming out in your mail soon, and you all have a very difficult decision to make. And so I hope when you do decide to make that decision, you not only look at the person for being popular or pretty or who you feel like your friends are going to vote for, but I think it's important that you make that decision based on your own choices, not others. And I hope that and encourage you all to vote for candidates that have proven to be professional, that have proven to be hard workers for the tribe within the tribe, and will put in a full week of work and be available for you guys. I hope that you guys see that you're going to vote for somebody that you feel is going to be fair and is going to make decisions for the tribal membership as a whole. And therefore, I'm gonna shorten mine because Mike did take kind of a long time. So therefore, I humbly offer that my record of hard work and professionalism, and I want to dedicate all of my qualities professionally and personally. I want to dedicate everything that I've learned to this tribe. I've attended tribal council meetings, the community meetings, because I wanted to learn as much as I could before I even thought about running for council. I was approached in January and asked to run for council, and I was like, heck no, I see what these people are put through. That's crazy. But the more I attended these meetings, the more I realized I'm a member and I have a voice, and it's time for me to actually go up there and be a voice. And I hope that members do feel comfortable coming to me and allowing me to be their voice. So today, I am asking you for your vote. Please vote for me, and even if I don't make it to council, please know that if you don't feel like you have the voice to speak up, I will be your voice. I have no problem talking to council members and other members about anything that's going on. So again, I humbly ask for your vote. If you have any questions or want to reach out to me, please do. You can reach me at angelaforcouncil@outlook.com. Thanks.
And Angela and David both have some materials up here for folks if you want to take it with you. So hopefully, great job everybody. We've been through the last 3 weeks. Hopefully these forums have prepared you all for the last forum, I think is on Wednesday, I believe, the Tribes Forum. And has provided the membership an opportunity to learn more about who you are as candidates and what you all stand for and how you'll vote on these issues. So great job. Round of applause for these folks. It's a great job. The PAC typically does vote after the ballots have been sent, so we're going to be voting this week. Our membership has grown quite a bit this year, which is good. And we'll be voting next weekend for which 3 candidates will be dividing up the $50 that we've pulled together from all the members next weekend probably. So you all are welcome to join. Candidates can join and cast a vote. We just ask that the $50 tax credit that everybody has, can use or lose in the state of Oregon, comes as part of that, so that we pool our money and help pay for these very expensive mailings that you are probably considering sending. So thanks everybody, and we'll see you all next year. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian.